Hey there, welcome to Craft Central Designs. Today I'm sharing with you a very unique, whimsical yet beautiful autumn decor piece that I created for the Quantum House lobby, combining an adorable scarecrow with lots of features with paper mache crafting pumpkins from Hobby Lobby. Stay tuned because this tutorial is chocked full of crafting instruction for autumn decor. So whether you would like to create this project on the same size scale that I did, or modify to a smaller size, or just create the scarecrow head with a pumpkin, this detailed tutorial will provide you with everything from paint blending instruction for the pumpkins to instruction on creating a whimsical scarecrow face to creative autumn bow making to instruction on creative use of autumn florals and materials to creating deco mesh scrunch bundles. So, lots to learn on this one, lots of different skills combined to create this very cute and beautiful decor piece. Welcome to all to my channel today. Please remember to subscribe if you are not currently, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy, and leave me your comments. I always love receiving them. Let me know what you think of this scarecrow slash pumpkin decor piece. Okay, let's get busy creating this scarecrow pumpkin decor piece. Now, as you can see, this piece has so much detail. Everything from painting to creating scarecrow clothing, if you will, or a hat, to combining all types of materials that are so wonderful to create with when you're doing autumn decor. I love doing autumn decor because of that. So much materials that you can utilize, and they can be just so rustic and fun and frayed and stringy and all kinds of things that are just so fun to craft with. Okay, let's start with the materials. Now, I created a burlap hat for my scarecrow. Now, you can make this hat with any type of material that you like. I just think that burlap is a great material for this type of project. Now, you can pick up burlap rolls in the single rolls at Dollar Tree. If you do pick up about 3 of those, you can get the regular burlap color too as well if you prefer that. Otherwise, you can always get it by the yard at Hobby Lobby. I would get at least like around a yard if you're going to get it by the yard. Now, those pumpkins there, the kind of tan colored one, those are the crafting pumpkins that I mentioned before. Now, these are so much less expensive than the regular pumpkins that are already colored. Those pumpkins at Hobby Lobby are really, really expensive. Like originally, like a pumpkin that size is like $30 something dollars. It's like ridiculous. If you get the paper mache ones, which are the brown ones that you see there, they're unfinished, and you finish them, of course, but so much cheaper. They're like $12, I think, and 40% off of that. So I got 2 of those. Now I'm going to be using paints. That color that you saw there, that's in the Crafters collection. That's the pumpkin color, the red, black, and I'm going to use some white acrylic. The chalk paint there is Waverly chalk paint. I get that at Walmart. And the color I'm going to be using is cashew. Now, I love using chalk paint for those pumpkins. I have here a bundle of pipe cleaners that's going to match the color scheme of this decor piece. Now, I have this beautiful plaid, one of my very favorites, that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. It's 1.5 inch, and those ribbons are 40% off right now. This is a Celebrate ribbon. Absolutely love this ribbon. So it's a Celebrate ribbon, so obviously it's from Michaels. But here's another option, another 1.5-inch ribbon with pumpkins that also would go very well with this piece, and that is from Hobby Lobby. I also have some white pipe cleaners for when I create that bow with the ribbon with the white background from Michaels, the Celebrate ribbon. I like to match my pipe cleaners as closely as possible to the project that I'm doing. I have here a package of Raffia, again 40% off in the autumn materials and decor aisle at Hobby Lobby. I also have some regular color raffia. I'm definitely going to be using a lot of that. I believe I had gotten that raffia on Amazon, but you could certainly pick that up at Hobby Lobby as well. Now I have here an assortment of florals, some of which I got recently at Hobby Lobby. Love that flower. Do you recognize that? I use the white version of that flower often on projects. So, of course, I'm loving seeing it in a colorful version that I can use for autumn. Now, I have a sunflower there. I ended up not using a flower that big, but as I always do, I gather together all the materials that I think at the onset of the project that I may use. Now, I love the leaves, the stems that they have at Hobby Lobby with leaves. Now, you have to be careful when you purchase them. If you pick up anything in orange, be careful they're not that bright orange. That's really not going to go well with a lot of autumn decor crafting items. So you have to be careful about the oranges. Just do your best to determine when you're in the store. And that goes for Dollar Tree autumn materials as well. Some manufacturers make them extremely bright, almost fluorescent, and it's really not a good color for true autumn decor. There's some little mini pine cones, didn't end up using those. I did use a little bit of pitberry, so just go into your craft stash, see what you have, maybe that you recently purchased or that you purchased in the past for your autumn crafting supplies. I have there some acorns. Love those. Those are from Dollar Tree. And I have here a 6-inch deco mesh. Now, I believe I got that at Hobby Lobby. I'm sure that they have a 6-inch deco mesh, if not that exact one. Notice how my pipe cleaners go very well with my deco mesh. I'm a kind of a fanatic about that. I do have some orange. Actually, it's a nice soft orange snowball mesh there. I thought maybe I would use that. I ended up not using it. Definitely using some Aliens tacky glue, hot glue, scissors, of course. I'm going to use a rotary cutter to cut my deco mesh. You'll need all of your paints, of course, paint brushes, things of that nature. Anything that I add onto that list, of course, I'll be telling you about as we proceed through the video. So I determined that this was going to be a good shape for the hat of my Scarecrow. Now, how I determined that was just trial and error, taking a piece of fabric, wrapping it, if I could speak, around the head of the pumpkin. I guess you could call it the head of the pumpkin. Well, actually, it's going to be the Scarecrow head, but I'm using pumpkins, so I'm doing something a little bit creative, I think, today. So I came up with this pattern. Now, I'm going to show you what the dimensions are of that. Any materials that I use with measurements on this video, I will put in the description box. So I cut out a triangle. Now, I wanted my hat to be a little bit long. You could do a short hat if you want by just decreasing the height of the triangle. Now, I cut out 2 pieces of that triangle, and I'm going to be putting pipe cleaners along the edges. I also have 2 long pieces, and those are going to be for the brim of the hat. Now, again, I'll put the measurements of those but it's one piece folded in half that I ironed with a very nice fold. Now, this is going to be double thickness because I want to have kind of a rippled effect to the brim of the hat. I think this creates a really cute look. And the way that I acquire that rippled look is by attaching pipe cleaners to the edge of my pieces, which of course I'm going to show you here. Now notice on the top of my triangle, it has a blunt end, about a 1.5-inch blunt end. The reason why it doesn't come to a point is because I'm going to be inserting a little bundle of raffia in the top of the hat, which is a true Scarecrow characteristic. So I have my burlap cut out. Now, you can use whatever fabric, like I mentioned, that you want for this. I think burlap is a really nice texture fabric that goes really, really well with any type of autumn decor. Of course, you can use any color of burlap that you like, or maybe another fabric that's of a more stiff nature that will hold the shape of the hat. Now, I have a 12-inch long full-size pipe cleaner and then another pipe cleaner cut in half. So the length of this, side of this hat is 18 inches. So I'm using the 12 and the half pipe cleaner, which would be 6 inches. And I'm taking some Aleene's Tacky Glue and I'm gluing that pipe cleaner about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit more from the edge of the hat. Now, why I'm doing this is because I also wanted to ripple the sides of the hat. I like having the ability to manipulate the hat so that I can create the look exactly the way I want it. Now, after I did both sides, I ironed this piece of the material. I actually have 2 of those, and the dimensions of that is 18 inches long by 6 inches wide. The other piece is I want to say that's 16 by 16. I thought for a minute there it was 18, but I think it ended up being 12 and 4 inches on the sides of that triangular piece. I'll go more into that in a bit. I don't want to confuse you here. I'm going to go ahead and apply my pipe cleaners about 1/2 inch in from the edge. So what I do is I take my rectangular piece, which is 18 inches long, 6 inches wide. I fold it in half and I press it. I iron it. I ironed as well the hat. Now, nothing makes me more crazy than seeing someone craft with wrinkly fabric or any kind of crease. You know, use your iron, use your mini Cricut heat press, or whatever you have to press the fabric and get a nice smooth fabric to start your project. Okay, so after I applied my pipe cleaner to the length of that 18-inch piece, about 1/2 inch from the edge, now I'm going to start gluing together the sides of my hat. Now, I know I'm going to have raw edges. I know they're going to fray. That is just fine with me. That's the look I want. The beauty of doing anything Scarecrow is that you can have all the frayed edges that you want. All the materials that you use to do a Scarecrow are all kind of that kind of rustic, raggedy fabric that or material that just creates that great, authentic look of a Scarecrow. So now what I'm doing is I'm taking my hot glue gun and I'm putting a line of hot glue gun in small segments, and I'm going to glue the pipe cleaners together. Now I have a little bit of the edges. Remember, we did this about 1/4 of an inch in. So I'll be able to take my little hook tool and fray out those edges on the sides a bit. And I, again, love the look of that. So this is actually a very easy piece to create because we don't want a finished look. We want a more frayed, rustic look. So I'm going to just do this in sections, and I'm just going to press that together, creating the closure of that seam on both sides of the hat. Now, again, the hat is 16 inches long and about 16 inches across. So 16 inches on the sides and 16 inches across the bottom. Now, I do end up trimming a couple of inches off of the bottom of this hat or the straight edge. Again, when I create my projects, it's a trial and error, kind of winging it, because I don't have any instructions. So occasionally I might have to make a little change as we go along, but I'll always let you know that, and it will always be reflected in the description box, the final measures of everything that I do. All right, now here's those long pieces that are going to become the brim of the hat. I'm going to do the same thing on those. Hot glue together the pipe cleaners, and then we'll have that edge there, which is going to end up to be maybe around a half an inch. And we're going to take that little pick tool. I love those. You can use a seam ripper as well, or anything sharp where you can actually start fraying out the brim of the hat. So the folded side of that fabric is going to be attached to the hat itself. Now, yes, it would have been great to do it all in one piece and then just pop the hat on top of the pumpkin or the head of the scarecrow. But a little bit easier said than done. If you've tried it, I had to fit that hat right to the head or to the top of the pumpkin. And so because I had to do that and be sure I had the fit right before I put the brim on, I just went ahead and put the hat on. Then I easily just attached this piece, which is the brim of the hat. It attached very easily to the hat itself. So it was really quite easy to do. So now I'm just gluing up my other piece there. And let me tell you, this was a great decision, putting this pipe cleaner on the brim of the edge of the brim of the hat, because that rippled look looks so awesome on this hat. Looks very authentic to kind of a straw hat with a floppy brim, if that makes sense. Okay, you can see I am fraying everything out. You're going to see me doing a lot of fraying on this piece, and I love it that it's so rustic looking like that with all the frayed edges. One time when you do a deco mesh scrunch that you don't have to worry about fraying, it's going to be on this piece. So much fun. Now, waste not, want not. I am going to keep the strings that I pulled off of my fabric, my burlap strings, and I am going to reincorporate those into the project because I like lots of textures on this piece. So I just kind of bunched them up, the larger pieces that I had. I collected them, just put a little pipe cleaner around there. I'm going to add that into my bow. It's going to go on the side of the hat of my scarecrow. So now I'm just trying to promote some fraying on the edges of my hat. Now you can see there that piece is the brim of the hat. I'm not going to attach it now. I just thought once it was on the piece, it would be easier to determine how to attach it. And I think the method that I used worked out extremely well. Okay, so here I ended up cutting 6 inches. I originally was going to do 8 inches, and then I realized that was too long for the brim of the hat, or too wide. So I'll put those measurements in the description box. And then I ended up the hat again, 16 inches across the bottom, and then the sides were 16 inches. Now, I'm showing you here the effect that I wanted to create with the pipe cleaners inserted into the brim of the hat, also down the sides of the hat. You're going to appreciate that extra step with the pipe cleaners once you see how effective they are on in creating a hat. Okay, so we have these stems that come on these, I think they're like a paper mache. If you look inside, what you see I'm doing right there, it looks like it's a paper mache pumpkin, like layers of paper that are molded into the shape of a pumpkin. Now, of course, these are unfinished. These certainly need some crafting skills. So we're going to be painting them. But just a word, these are great for using a napkin or fabric on to create a textured pumpkin or a decorative pumpkin with napkins and fabric. In fact, you'll probably see me doing this on another video. I love to put materials like fabric and napkins, decoupage to a pumpkin. You could do some beautiful, beautiful pumpkins like that. But we've all seen, Mod Podging, so that's not like a new thing, but I may show you some unique methods of creating a beautiful pumpkin with these pumpkins. Okay, so I think they were like around $12 with 40% off. Now I have both of them here. I only needed to cut off the stem of one of them. That's going to be the one on the bottom. If you're going to use 2 pumpkins, I wanted to stack mine to create a stacked pumpkin look. Yeah, I know it might be different. Possibly I could have seen something, possibly on Pinterest, that's somewhat similar. But I have seen a scarecrow head made from a pumpkin. I think it's a really cool idea to create a scarecrow head using a pumpkin. Okay, so I'm going to remove, obviously, the stickers from the bottom. Now, I am going to be painting these. I would go ahead and cut off the stem. I don't know where I went here, but I'm sure I'll be back. Oh, my goodness. I'm crafting on my island. I have a beautiful big RV that I keep in my happy place, nestled under a lot of trees by the woods. I keep a beautiful, big, gorgeous RV. I actually have a crafting room, and I have an island in my kitchen. Oh, my goodness. It is so the place where I love to go crafting. And just chilling and just enjoying nature. Lots of birds singing all the time. It's very quiet near the beach. Yeah. I love, it's like kind of the equivalent of a she shed, only it's a beautiful RV. Yeah, I think I mentioned that, but I guess you could tell I love my RV. Okay, so I went ahead and I painted both of my pumpkins with that cashew Waverly chalk paint. Now, what I'm going to show you here is how to blend paint. Now, if you've never done this before, let me tell you, this is really much easier than you might think. You're going to put a color that you want to use in the crevices of your pumpkin to create like a look of depth or definition in your pumpkin. For me, I'm going to use a brown. Now, obviously, for the rest of the pumpkin, I'm going to use that cashew color. Now, I'm going to use a wide paintbrush, an angled paintbrush. I want to say it's about 1 inch wide. I'm going to dip the very tip of my paintbrush in the brown. And then the other 3/4 of the paintbrush, I want to say about 1/4 inch brown. The rest of it, 3/4 inch, dipped into the cashew color. Now I'm going to take the tip or the point of my paintbrush where the brown is and just put a line of paint right in the crevice. Then I'm going to start dragging my paintbrush through my paint until I've blended the color into a solid cashew color. Now, I'm going to show you this quite a few times so you can understand what I'm referring to. But the fun of this is you can almost do no wrong. Because if you're not getting it right the first time, you could just keep dragging your paint through the crevice. Keep trying to keep that brown in the crevice. Drag your paint on the sides of the crevice with your paintbrush. Drag it along through the paint until your paint is blended into that solid cashew color. So it's a graduation of color. Let's try it again here. I dipped my brown with the tip of my paintbrush. Then I dipped my paint in the cashew. I dragged my paint along the crevice. So what we're doing here is creating a look of depth or definition to our pumpkins, and they begin to start looking very rustic. Now, I create a full layer of cashew paint over each section, but I blend my paint on the section with the crevices. Now, you could play around with this a lot. It's very forgiving. If you don't get it right the first time, maybe you end up covering up your crevice with too much cashew paint. No problem. Just dip your paintbrush back into the brown again and start over. Super simple. And it doesn't have to be perfect. That's the fun of this. It's just creating a look of depth and definition to your crevices of your pumpkin. Just keep utilizing your brush. Now, be sure you use a wide brush here, or else it's going to be a task that seems very daunting, and long. So, use a wide brush. Do yourself a favor there. Preferably an angled brush that's about 1 inch wide. Now, do you see how I create a strong brown line going down the crevice, and then I just keep taking my paintbrush and going over it and just kind of blending the color. And again, this does not have to be perfect. Play around with it. Have fun with the process. This is one of my favorite things to do. I love painting anything. So, I love doing this part. I'm also going to do the orange pumpkin, but I'm going to do that one a little bit different, but with the same exact technique. Now, it's okay if some of your crevices are a little darker than the others. That's fine. See how fun this is? I hope you're seeing it that way, because it really is. Okay, one more time. Let's dip the paintbrush, the tip in brown. The rest of it dipped in cashew. Run my paintbrush along the crevice line. If I don't have enough, a little bit more. Then from there, just keep going over that spot, graduating the blending of the color as you, go, as you start leaving the area of the crevice, if that makes sense, and moving toward the actual body of each segment of the pumpkin. I hope that made sense there. It's kind of a difficult thing to describe. But like I said, just play with it. See how I just keep going over it? If I'm not happy, I could just keep going over this. Now, one thing I'm going to tell you that can help the process, make sure your brush doesn't get dry. Keep a little container of water there. Keep a paper towel there so you can dab your paintbrush on it. dip your paintbrush in water periodically and then dab it off on the paper towel. Okay, now we're going to do the orange one. Now, we're doing the base pumpkin. That's why we're doing it on the one where I cut off the stem, because that other pumpkin is going to sit right on top of that, and I didn't want the stem to be in the way. Now I'm going to use Crafter's Collection in the color pumpkin. I can tell you that Waverly also has a great chalk paint, which if I had it in my paint stash, I would have used it, but I didn't have any. Great paint for this project as well. So you're using chalk paint with chalk paint, so that's always a great thing. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead, and now you could do it either way. It doesn't matter how you do it. If you want to go ahead and fill in the section of your pumpkin first, you could do that and then add your paint in the crevices, or you can do it just, the other way that we were doing it, doing the crevice first and then blending the paint into each section of the pumpkin. Okay, now I'm going to do the opposite effect here. I dipped my paint on the tip of my paintbrush in white chalk paint, and then I dipped the rest of it in my pumpkin paint. Now look at the effect I'm going to create on my pumpkins. Now I love doing orange pumpkins like this. I love the look of this. See how I'm just blending my colors? Just by simply putting a little dab of the color for the crevice on the tip of your paintbrush, then dipping the rest of your paintbrush down in your base color, which here is the pumpkin color. Then just utilizing your paintbrush, dragging your brush through the paint and allowing it just to blend until you come to a point where you just are working with just the pumpkin color on the body of each section, or that full section of the pumpkin. And here we go again. I dipped my paintbrush in white. I'm running it along the crevice. See how I do that? Then I just start dragging my paintbrush. Look at the effect that creates. It completely changes the look of the pumpkin. It makes it look a lot more like an actual pumpkin. Now these paper mache pumpkins are very nice to paint. I do find that it takes 2 layers of paint. So that's why I did the cashew color first, mainly because I didn't have any Waverly pumpkin colored paint. I probably would have just used that on the base coat. But the cashew worked just fine, gives you like a nice base to work with while you're creating your top layer and doing your blending. And again, remember, if you don't get the effect that you're looking for right off, just go ahead, dip your paint in the crevice color, which in this case is white, drag it along the crevice, then put some pumpkin on your paintbrush and just start dragging your paint along the sides of the crevice. And this is going to give you this really beautiful effect to your pumpkin. And trust me, this makes a difference. Now, let's say you don't want to do this part. Maybe you're intimidated by blending. You've never done it before. You don't have to do this part. I'm just showing you because I love to do it. And hopefully maybe I could show you that it's not that difficult. And I love the effect of it. So yeah, I'm going to continue showing you this because I think it's such a great skill to have for creating your fall decor. And again, like I said, you could just keep doing this. See how I just keep going back in with the white? If I'm not satisfied, I'm just going to go back in and do it again. Now see how I have a lot of white there, so now I'm going to add some pumpkin. And I'm just going to drag my paintbrush. See how I do that? Yeah, this is a really nice look for a pumpkin. And you can also, if you want to create like a lighter shade with that white mixed in, you can go over the bulky sections of your pumpkin as well. Just have fun with the painting process. That's what crafting is all about. It's supposed to be enjoyable, but I think it's awesome when you can learn a new skill to add to your crafting. So I wanted to create or include today this little painting lesson on how to blend colors to make a really beautiful looking pumpkin with a lot of visual interest. Now see, I have a very light coat there. I'm going to now go in with some pumpkin and just do some blending. And I promise we're almost done with this part, but yeah, a good lesson to learn. Okay, so my pumpkin is done. Look at it. It's so pretty. Just really has a lot of depth now and visual interest. And this is my head of my Scarecrow. So I have both of my pumpkins all ready to go. And look what I've done. I created a face. Okay, so as you can see, if you follow my channel, I'm using the same eyes that I tend to use. I put 2 parallel lines across the top of the head or the upper part of the face, and I attached 2 teardrops to each parallel line. I created eyebrows with some stitches. I put eyelashes on my eyes, a triangular nose, and I did a little curvy mouth with some stitches. Now this is the basic face that I'm going to use for my Scarecrow. You can use whatever you like. If you like different types of eyes, you can always, if you want different ideas for eyes, you can, here's an example of ones you could do. I always keep my eye page in my sketchbook handy in case, we're doing something with a face. You could do 2 oblong eyes if you like with some eyelashes. Tilt them a little bit. This is the one that I did. 2 parallel lines. I attach a teardrop shape, add some eyelashes, highlight to the eyes, draw in the eyeball, put some little lashes at the bottom. Now the eyes on the bottom are exactly the same. I just create a little line to create the eyelids. Makes it look like more like the eyes are halfway closed, if you like that look. Same exact thing as the second one, only just create that curve for the eyelid. Now you can also go on Pinterest or Google and put in a search for whimsical faces and images, and you can come up with all kinds of ideas. This is the one that I wanted to do for my Scarecrow because I think those eyes just always turn out so cute. So I made my nose triangular. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. Remember, this is a Scarecrow. Scarecrows are not perfect. They're not totally symmetrical. They're just fun and whimsical and rustic and scraggly. And oh boy, this piece, you can just make a lot of mistakes and you have a ton of ways to correct them. Let me tell you about this piece. It's so much fun that way. And I'll point out along the way how you can mask some of your imperfections. Now I went ahead and I painted the mouth and the eyebrows and the eyes, and I painted the nose. I did outline the nose in black. I am going to give my Scarecrow pink cheeks. So I dab my paintbrush, which is a kind of a bristly paintbrush with a flat bottom. I dip it in red and then I rub off most of the paint on the brush. And then I just begin doing kind of like a little circular motion with my paintbrush. And I'm going to create some big pink cheeks, as you can see here. Now, I did fill in the little white part of the eye, and I put a little dot on each eye for the white light in the eye. So you could do your faces however you like. Now, get ready for a mess, because nothing like working with Raffia to create a big mess. But I'm okay with that. It's worth it for the project. Okay, so as you unwrap, if you get these packages of Raffia, which most of them come folded like this, they're going to have a little bit of a fold in them. So you want to try and work around that. So what I'm going to do is create some Raffia bundles, which I'm going to glue around the top of the head for the long part of the Raffia hair, if you will, of the Scarecrow, and also the bangs of the Scarecrow. Now I take a pipe cleaner and I bundle up my Raffia bundles, just using maybe not even a quarter of a pipe cleaner. And I just create my bundles by just pulling off some of the strands of the Raffia, folding it in half, and then wrapping around that pipe cleaner. So yeah, it's going to look, kind of crazy and scraggly and all that until you go to do your haircut, if you will, with the Raffia. So I'm not concerned right now with the way the Raffia looks. Mostly, I just want to create my bundles. Now, maybe you have another method to do this, but for me, I thought this was the best method. Give it a try. If you have a better method, of course, feel free. So I'm going to continue pulling off Raffia sections to about the width of the one that I just showed you. I created 10 longer Raffia bundles, and I'm showing you 2 here, but I actually created 3 to go across the top of the head, over the eyes for the bangs of the Scarecrow. Now I'm going to begin the gluing process. And keep in mind that that's a good amount of bundles that I'm giving you that will adequately cover the pumpkin, but maybe you might need to add more. But, go ahead and start out with this amount if you're using this pumpkin. Now, if you're doing this on a much smaller scale, you're using smaller pumpkins, you're going to have to determine how much and how long yourself. Now, I cut my sections or pulled my sections of Raffia off in about 12-inch sections, and then I folded them in half, and I put the Raffia, I secured the Raffia with the little piece of pipe cleaner. So your sections for the longest part of your Scarecrow hair, or I don't know what we're calling it, let's just call it hair, they're going to be around 6 or 7 inches long. So I cut off a blunt end on my Raffia at the top, and I just start gluing that on. Now don't worry again how crazy it's going to look at the onset, because it will look much better after we do a Raffia cutting with the scissors. But the main thing is right now is to get all of the Raffia on. And here we have it. And our Scarecrow is looking quite scary with the Raffia right now. But it's going to look much better once we get our trimming done. Now, if you notice any especially bald spots, easy enough to create another little bundle, whatever size or however much Raffia you feel you need for that section, and just insert it in any areas that seem a little bit bald, if you will. Now, I did a lot of trimming on this Raffia. I did a good trimming at the onset, but I found that as I, continued on creating my piece, that I just kept doing a lot of trimming. So I'm going to suggest you wait and clean up the mess later, because you're probably going to keep trimming until you're finished with this piece. I just shoved all of mine onto the floor and just swept it up with a broom. This is messy, but I don't mind messy. I'm a crafter at heart, and every mess is worth it to me. So you could decide how short you want yours. I mean, if you look on Pinterest, you're going to see all kinds of interpretation of a scarecrow. In fact, I invite you to do that. It's really fun to see, everybody's interpretation. And then you can adapt whatever look you like for your scarecrow. Okay, what I'm doing here is I folded another bunch of raffia up. I want to say I did it about 8 inches, maybe 9 inches. I folded it in half and secured it with a little pipe cleaner. And what I'm doing here is I am going to insert it in the top of my hat. Now, one thing that I did, don't hate me, but I'm going to suggest that you string out your raffia in plain words. Pull it apart to create small strings. This creates a much better look than the thick pieces of raffia. Now I'm going to take a bit of hot glue and I'm going to pop my straw into the top of my hat. Now when I did my raffia on the top of my pumpkin head, I just put it on my lap, put on a good show on TV, a movie or whatever, and I just did all of my kind of fraying of my raffia because that's how much I love a stringy raffia. It was no big deal to do it. You do it or not do it, but I think it creates a better look. Now here is where I cut off. I started off with 16-inch long section of length of this hat, but I ended up cutting off a couple of inches because I felt it was just a little bit too long. And again, trial and error. I create my designs as I go along. So sometimes I do need to make an adjustment mid-project, if you will, and I'll always let you know what those adjustments are. Now I'm fraying out the edges. Now I am going to take a little bit of batting and just kind of pull it with my fingers, spread it out a little bit just to give a little stability or stuffing to this hat to help it stand up a little bit. I don't want a lot. I certainly don't want it packed solid. So I begin by pushing it all the way up to the top. So I'm not going to put a lot in there, but I'm going to put some, again, for, just some structure to the hat. I didn't include the batting at the onset in the materials segment, but I'm telling you now, I forgot to mention that. Now we are going to be decorating or embellishing the top of that hat. The Scarecrow has so much potential for detailing. And let me tell you, the more detailing you do, the cuter this Scarecrow becomes. Okay, so I have frayed out or pulled apart my raffia pieces as much as I can to make them stringy. Now I'm going to go about fitting my burlap hat on my Scarecrow. So I pay attention to where the face is on the Scarecrow. And I'm going to put the sides of my hat accordingly on top of the head. Now, I found that it helped a lot when I was putting the hat on if I created a little bit of a crease on the side. That's what I'm showing you right there. So I kind of folded it over, and this also helps the hat to stand up a little bit. Now, I said to you before, you can hide everything with this piece because it's so much fun, and there's so much detailing with ribbons and raffia and twine and florals and oh my goodness, just so much detailing that it really makes this project so much fun. So where I folded over my hat there on the side, see how I did that? I did secure that with hot glue. I'm going to be able to camouflage those creases with detailing. So I go about putting the hat on, and I'm going to secure that with hot glue underneath wherever I decide the perimeter of the hat should be sitting on the head. Now, when you squirt your hot glue up underneath that fabric, it's also going to adhere that raffia more to the pumpkin. So it accomplishes a couple of things there, securing the hat as well as extra securing of the raffia. Now I'm going to pull the back of the hat down over the back of the head, and I'm going to do the same thing with that. I'm going to bring the hat down in the back, kind of manipulate the hat to sit on the head the way I want it. And then I'm going to put some hot glue just like I did on the front. Now for the top of the hat, we're going to be doing that next as you see me working my way around this hat to secure it. I started to do something I actually did something to the top of that hat and not realizing that I filmed with my iPhone, that my iPhone had died. It was just a very simple thing, but I'm going to tell you about it now. I took a long piece of baker's twine, I want to say about 24 inches, and up at the top of that hat, where the raffia is, I tied a piece of that twine around, and I pulled it super tight to gather up the top of that hat. Now I'm going to show you this, but I'm kind of telling you about it now because it didn't end up being filmed. Then I just took the excess after I tied it around the top of the hat to gather it, and I just tied a nice twine bow. Now the twine that you get from Dollar Tree, if you get it from there, but also from other places as well, is very curly, so it's going to look really good on the top of that hat or anywhere that you use it on this scarecrow. Okay, so now I'm going to take those long pieces and I'm going to attach them to the bottom of the hat. Now, I still believe that I did it the best way I could by securing the brim after I have the hat on the scarecrow. This is going to enable me to position it just perfectly. Now you can see what I'm doing here. I'm manipulating those pipe cleaners to give me a rippled effect, which is supposed to look like a floppy straw hat with the brim kind of, scalloped and rippled. That's a very authentic look. And I wanted to achieve that as well as have those fringed edges on the brim of the hat. So you can see how all that extra effort comes to fruition here on this piece. Now I'm going to go ahead and go around and glue the brim on the hat. Now, each of those pieces will cover half of the hat, as you can see there. Now I do have a little bit left over on the end, what I'll just cut off the excess. Another thing that I found that helped me a little bit was cutting little slits along the curved area of the hat. That helped it to go around the hat a little bit easier. You can manage it probably without even doing that, but if you have trouble getting it to kind of fit around the curvature of the hat, around the base of the hat, just cut some little slits and that will help. So I'm going to secure all of that with hot glue, and then I'm going to go around the back side and do exactly the same thing. Now you're probably thinking there's going to be a seam or in that area where we glued the brim of the hat to the body of the hat. Well, I have something to camouflage that. It's actually not unsightly at all, but you know me, I love a detail. So I have a way to camouflage that as well. Okay, so you can see the effect of that rippled brim. Very cute, right? So, like I said, don't worry about the imperfections. Don't worry about any fraying or any type of area that you need to cover up. I can tell you, you got a whole lot of ways to do so, as I'll show you as we go along here. Look how cute that is. Okay. Now, off to the side there, you can see kind of a split on the left side, the area of the brim. I just put a little piece of, I had cut off a piece of that brim and I just patched it on the side. Again, imperfections. You can patch all you want with this project. In fact, we're going to put patches on the hat. Okay, so I took a piece of jute cord. Now, you could use a long piece of raffia. You could use some type of maybe a narrow ribbon, anything, any type of cotton cord that you might have. And you can put a little decorative trim along the base of the hat where you glued the brim to the body of the hat and camouflage that. Okay, so I cut a long piece of cord because I wanted to wrap it around the body of the hat. So I'm not sure how long. I want to say maybe, let's see, it would be 32 inches plus, maybe you want to cut about 48 inches, something like that. Because you're wrapping it around the entire base of the hat, bringing it around to the side, then you're going to create a bow. Okay, so I have that all glued on. Now I'm going to tie a knot and create a loopy little bow there. And I'm going to let my tails hang down because this jute has a little bit of a curl to it. All the better. So I'm going to leave that hang down. And now I've just camouflaged the little area where I pieced that fabric for the brim of the hat. Creating that little ripple around the hat for the brim. Now I had a little bald spot there I'm pointing to. I'm going to fill that in with a little bunch of raffia. Okay, let's create some patches for the hat. Now I have a little bit of gingham fabric and I have a little piece of burlap. And of course I chose a different color burlap so it would show up well. I cut some patches. I want to say they're about 2 inches by 2 inches. Now I put several patches on my hat. You could put as many or as few as you like. I made them various sizes. But the one important thing that I want to do is take my little pointer tool and fray the edges. And now I did this, of course, with my fabric patch as well as my burlap. Easy enough to do with both of them. I'm going to use Alien Sticky Glue and I'm going to glue my patches to my hat. Now, I wasn't sure at the onset when I started doing the hat here how many I was going to put on, but I decided to keep adding patches until I was satisfied. Once I had most of the piece put together, you could decide on that for your Scarecrow. But you'll notice in the finished Scarecrow hat that I put quite a few patches on there. And boy, does this add to the cuteness of this piece. Now, these two patches, I'm going to attach them together. The other ones I kind of just randomly placed around the hat. But these two I decided to put right toward the top of the hat. So I glued them together. And then furthermore, I'm going to glue those to the top of the hat right there. Now I found that these patches on this hat added so much character to the hat, so it was a really great addition. I am also going to embellish the top of this hat, which again was a great addition to this piece. I'm going to show you that here in just a minute. And just press that down, make sure your little patches are adhered. See how it's getting cuter by the minute here. Oh, wait till we get done with this. Oh my gosh, we're going to have a bow with some raffia in it and some frayed burlap pieces and some sunflowers on the side of the hat. But first, before we do that, we're going to finish the top. Now, I took a couple of strands of rusty colored raffia. You can use whatever you like. You can use the natural raffia. You use whatever you like. I added a couple of pieces of curly twine, and I'm going to create a bundle. I'm also going to include in this piece on the top of the hat a little piece of pitberry garland in the rusty orange. Now, after I created my little bundle here, I took a little, I decided to create a bow out of that. So I just kind of folded it to create a loop, and then folded it on the other side to create a figure 8 loop, crisscrossed it in the middle, holding it there with my thumb and my index finger. And then I'm going to take a little piece of pipe cleaner and wrap it around there to secure that. So basically, my little bow at the top of my hat is made from raffia and twine and pitberry. I am going to put a little fall flower in the center. And oh boy, this is a really cute addition too. I'm going to fray that out any way that I can. Love the strings on this piece. Anything stringy. Now I have that little flower there. You could use a little sunflower, maybe a 2-inch sunflower, any type of fall flower. You could use acorn. You could use any type of fall embellishment here at the top. So I did, let's see, I don't think I did it quite yet. No, I didn't. Remember, I just mentioned before taking a long piece of twine, wrapping it around the top of the hat, pulling it tight, scrunching it up, and tying a bow. Well, yeah, I didn't get to show you that, but simple enough to do. And I do that before I attach this little bow. Now, I have a box of little bits and pieces of floral decor. So I was going through that to see what could I put on the top of this hat that would really create a cute look. So I decided to add some little orange, actually they're kind of a rusty orange pitberry. And then I was trying to decide, what else am I going to put in the center of the bow? And this is the way you can think about it. Maybe you could put a little autumn leaf or some little pods. Maybe you could put a pine cone, a little baby pine cone. So I hope I'm giving you some ideas here. But go through, see what you have. I did not purchase much to create this whole entire project because I went through everything that I had. And I found that I had so much stuff left over from last season, even including the deco mesh. So all I really had to do was buy the pumpkins. Okay, here's that little flower. Don't ask me what it's called. I really don't know, but it's very cute. It's almost like a little baby white sunflower kind of look to it. But all I know is it looked fabulous on top of this hat. So I attached that with glue, hot glue. And I think I'm going to show you here that that's where I wrapped around. See where I wrapped around the twine? Right there. That's what I did when my phone died. Okay, so the top of the hat is done. Now, I think I mentioned that I frayed out the raffia for that. Probably I did. Now I'm going to leave those stringy, scraggly ends. I love the look of that. Let them trail down and drape over the top of the hat. The more scraggly ends, the better, if you ask me. Super cute, right? Take the time to do the details. They make such a huge difference. Speaking of details, I'm going to be putting some deco mesh bundles, scrunches, utilizing this 6-inch deco mesh. Now, like I mentioned, they do have this, they do have some 6-inch deco mesh at Hobby Lobby. If you can't find a fall deco mesh, which you should be able to, but you could try Michael's, but also you could use a burlap here if you want. You could even use a fabric, a fall fabric, maybe with a leafy print or something like that. Okay, so I'm just going to do a simple scrunch. I don't care if I have frayed ends. I'm going to love it on this piece. So fraying on deco mesh in this case is awesome. I use a little quarter of a pipe cleaner, if that, and I just wrap around my bundles. Now, I did 10 bundles that fit all the way around this piece, and it's going to be inserted between the top pumpkin and the bottom pumpkin. Now, this ruffled, scrunched up deco mesh creates such a cute look for this piece. Now, hopefully you'll be able to find a textured 6-inch deco mesh for this. And, in a couple different colors would be great because, that adds even more visual interest. And, you might be able to get by with less bundles, but anywhere between 8 to 10 bundles, depending on how you insert them or how closely you insert them around the base of the pumpkin. Okay, so you could get by with maybe 8, 9, 10 bundles. Okay, time for bows. Now I'm actually going to create a bow for the side of the hat, and then I'm also going to create a bow for the base. So there's my little bundle of strings from when I frayed my burlap. I'm going to use that rusty colored raffia as well as the natural colored raffia because I'm going to put a lot of scraggly bits and pieces inserted into my bow as well as that curly twine. Now I'm going to take some bits of raffia. I want to say maybe like 6 pieces, and I'm going to bundle them up in sections. As far as the twine, I think I cut 2 or 3 pieces of twine. I love that twine because it's very curly, and I love the look that it added to this bow as it cascaded down the side of the head of the Scarecrow. Okay, I'm going to create a 4-loop bow here with this 1.5-inch ribbon that I purchased at Hobby Lobby. I love this ribbon. It's a very pretty plaid. I'm not really a big plaid girl, but I happen to love this plaid for anything fall. I used a lot of this last year. My loops are around 8 inches. I just fold over my loops, pinch it in the center, twist my ribbon, fold it over, matching the size of the loop on the other side, folding over my loop, creating loop number 3, twisting my ribbon, folding it over again, pinching it in the center. Now I have a 4-loop bow. I am going to leave about a 6-inch tail. I'm going to ripple my tails because this is a wired ribbon down the side of the head of the Scarecrow. So leave the tails. I'm going to angle those later. And now I'm going to create another layer to my bow with this very pretty pumpkin ribbon from Michaels. Again, same amount of tail, but I'm going to make these loops more like 7 inches, so they're a little bit smaller sitting on top of that plaid bow. Same process, fold over my loops, pinch it in the center, twist my ribbon, so I always have the right side of the ribbon facing up. And I'm going to use a white pipe cleaner because you know how I mentioned before, I like to match my pipe cleaners to whatever material that I'm using for a particular task. Now what I'm going to do with my pieces of raffia and burlap strings and twine is I'm going to kind of sandwich those in between the bow layers. And then this is going to just kind of trail down and poke out from the bow, and I really love the scraggly look of that for this scarecrow hat. It also adds a lot of color and texture and visual interest to this piece. Not only that, it dresses it up quite a bit. So it adds a very, pretty element as well. Okay, so I'm going to start kind of just building this bow here. And I'm going to press my raffia behind the bow, holding it with my fingertips, and just attach all of those pieces that we prepared for this bow. And I'm going to kind of sandwich those in between the two bows. So I'm just going to hold that as I create. Oops, sorry, my hand's out of frame there. I'll be back. And then I'm just going to place it on top of the plaid bow. I'm going to take the pipe cleaners that were in the back of that white ribbon with the pumpkins and just wrap it around the back of the plaid ribbon. Now everything is all attached together, and I have a very rusticy scarecrow looking type of bow. Now, of course, I'm going to trim all this up, mostly when I get it on the piece. But I took an extra pipe cleaner just to secure everything together, and I wrapped it around everything, all collected. And then I'm just going to hot glue this right to the hat. There's my little burlap strings. See how it adds texture? Now, whenever you're doing an autumn piece, this is a really nice look. Upcoming, I'm going to do a video. I realized when collecting all of my autumn materials from last season that I have a ton of it. And I have a lot of pumpkins and fake gourds, faux gourds, and things like that. So I'm going to create a basket with beautiful bows. I picked up a basket, a rectangular big basket, on sale, 50% off at Hobby Lobby. And I collected all of my little pumpkins, all different size pumpkins, and I'm going to create a basket with pumpkins and gourds and gorgeous ribbons with raffia, and it's just going to be so beautiful. So if you're interested in doing something like that, gather together all of your materials and choose a basket. Maybe pick one up at the thrift store. I'm going to make over the basket with paint. I'm going to create an arrangement using pumpkins and all types of dried materials, and we're going to create beautiful rustic autumn bows to go on the basket. It's going to be absolutely gorgeous for a centerpiece or anywhere that you would like to place it, on a fireplace mantle, as a centerpiece for a buffet. Yeah, it's going to be beautiful, but I just wanted to mention that because it's upcoming in the next video, and maybe you have a lot of materials that you could utilize for this. I certainly do. Make sure you have raffia. Make sure you have some pretty ribbons. Make sure you have some Excelsior to put in the basket. Make sure you have some floral foam. Okay, so as I'm talking here, you can see that I attached that bow right to the side of the hat. Now remember I said how easy it is to camouflage things. Well, remember how we kind of folded over that little section on the side of the hat? Well, guess what? You don't even see it anymore. Okay, giving this bow a little trim, but yet leaving it scraggly. That's the way I like it. I did secure some of the loops of the bow to the hat to keep it perfectly in place the way I wanted it. Now I am going to be putting a couple of small sunflowers. They're about 2 inches round. And I'm going to be rippling the tails of this very pretty bow that I created. Love the visual interest of that. And I'm going to place those 2 little sunflowers right in the center of that bow. Now you can, create your scarecrow in whatever look you like. Everything from the face, the way you draw it on and paint it on, to the size of the hat, whether you want a full brim or no brim at all, how tall you want the hat, how short you want it, what type of hat you want. These scarecrows are just so much fun, and that you can create them in so many different fashions, and it's completely up to you and what your vision is for the piece. And then just add on all of your fall type floral embellishments. And I'm showing you how to very creatively do that here. I am going to be adding more patches on that hat. So when you see the finished product, so to speak, notice how many patches that I put on the hat. Now you can use all different types of fabric for that. Maybe you have some fabric with a fall print. You could include that. You could include burlap fabric. You can even take a wide burlap ribbon and use that to create patches. But the patches on the hat are a great addition to this piece. And take note of that when you see the finished product. I did add more on after you see it here. Now for the face, I did. I'm putting the little sunflowers on now. But I wanted to make mention for the face, I ended up using, I'm showing you different options here for the center. Sorry, I keep deviating back and forth. But for the face, I just want to mention, I did put a little whitewash over the triangular nose, just with a dry white paintbrush. And I also put some white freckles on the cheeks of my scarecrow. Now this just created a cute look. You do you, how you like yours. So I'm just going to hot glue those little sunflowers. I believe I got those at some point in time at Hobby Lobby, but I'm sure you could find them there. The best place to find the little trims and bits and pieces to put on your piece is there's an aisle at Hobby Lobby that has a lot of shelving with bins full of different types of florals. Everything from pretty leaves to little seeds, dried like pods, combinations, stems, and they're all 40% off right now. So worth it, and little fall flowers as well. Okay, so guess what? It's time to glue the scarecrow head on to the pumpkin. If you want to do this part, totally up to you. I have seen on Pinterest where some creators just created the head of the scarecrow on one singular pumpkin. You don't have to add a pumpkin. I'm just this was just my vision for the piece. I have that little piece of raffia sitting right there on that hat. It's driving me crazy. It's just a random piece that needs to be removed ASAP. Okay, so I used tacky glue and I just attached that pumpkin to the other base pumpkin. And I'm going to let that sit for a while and dry before I start trying to put on my deco mesh scrunches. Now, I can't say enough about how cute this looks around the bottom of the Scarecrow head. Almost looks like a collar. So I took my hot glue and I put it on the pipe cleaner ends and I just jam it in the crevices, and mostly in the crevices where the crevices on the pumpkin is. And I just push them in. Sometimes I use my scissors to shove them in there. But again, you can do anywhere from 8 to 10 scrunches. It just depends on how full and thick you want that collar around the Scarecrow neck. But 8 should do it, 10 even better. Do you see how cute this effect is? So we're going to place those all the way around the piece, and I wait until that's good and dry before I start, pushing those scrunches in there. Super cute. Okay, now I decided this piece, if you do the double pumpkins, could really use a nice base. And now remember, I am donating this piece. It's going to be for the lobby there's a big lobby when you enter the Quantum House. And it's a perfect place. They have beautiful entryway tables to place something like this. And so, I wanted it to be completely finished. So I took a 10-inch wood round, which you could pick up easily at the Dollar Tree or, Hobby Lobby, of course. And I'm just going to take a sponge applicator and go ahead and use Waverly Antiquing Wax. I love using this. It's a great product to work with, to stain. And I just take my paper towel to wipe off the excess. I did the top, the sides, and the back because I wanted it completely finished. Now I'm going to place my pumpkin on that wood round, but I'm going to place it more toward the back of the wood round than centered on the wood round. But before I do that, I'm going to put another bow on this piece. Now I'm going to put a catty corner to the bow on the hat. So the bow on the hat, as you look at the Scarecrow on this video, is on the right side. And then the bow is going to be down at the base of the orange pumpkin on the left side. Now this is going to be very pretty, and it actually creates kind of a balance of the piece. So having that fullness at the bottom is going to kind of balance the piece out. Having a lot of that size up on the head of the Scarecrow, being that you have the hat and the pumpkin and all the raffia hair. So I wanted to try and create a balance along the base. So I'm going to use the same technique to create this bow. I'm creating a 4-loop bow with all the same measurements, the 8-inch loops. Creating the second layer exactly the same with 7-inch loops. Leaving about a 4-inch tail. I don't need a long tail on this part. And then in the center of this bow, I showed you those pretty kind of golden yellow flowers that are the flowers of the design of my favorite flower from Hobby Lobby, which of course I was so happy to see that they created them in an autumn color. I use these on a lot of my projects. I think it's just the most pretty flower to work with. Okay, so creating my bow in the usual fashion, wrapping my pipe cleaners around. I'm going to put 2 of those kind of rusty golden yellow flowers in the center of that bow, as well as a little bit of raffia, just like I did the other bow. Not as much raffia, but just a little bit to add a little bit of raffia continuation to the bottom of the piece. Now we are getting close to the end, I promise you. But I mentioned to you at the onset, this is a very detailed piece. And so I am showing you all of the details. Now there is so much to be learned in this video, as I mentioned in the intro. A lot of skills involved in this piece. So hopefully, if you don't even want to create this piece, you learned a little something along the way as far as technique and skill and ideas for creating a certain look. Okay, so I just created a little raffia bundle the same way that I created all the other ones, wrapping a little pipe cleaner around there. I'll just insert it between the two layers of bows. Now I'm just stringing out my raffia a little bit. I find that if you pull more toward the center of the piece, that's a little easier than trying to pull from the end. See how I do that? I did that for all of the hair of my Scarecrow. Okay, now I'm just going to be gluing this to the base of my piece. It's going to adhere to the pumpkin as well as that wood base. I'm inserting my raffia, placing my pumpkin print bow right over the top, wrapping my pipe cleaners around to attach it all together. And then I'll put my flowers on once I have it on the piece. Fluffing everything out here, shaping my loops of my bow, pulling my raffia strands to create the most effect with them. Now we're getting toward the end, and I'm going to mention to you one little addition, but it was actually a big addition because it created a very big effect on this piece. I decided that my piece needed a little more balance. Now, I did not show you in the intro, but I'm going to use a 10-inch deco mesh for the bottom of this piece. Now, you could use any deco mesh that you like. I would not use anything with a metallic thread in it. I think you should use something with the flat fall color. You could use a burlap mesh. You could pick up a 10-inch fall mesh from either Hobby Lobby or craftcentraldesigns or even Amazon. But we're going to create that same scrunch bundle, but it's going to be bigger because I'm using a 10-inch mesh. And this is going to create a beautiful balance to the bottom of the piece if you want to do the piece with the double pumpkins. Okay, so you can see there that I put a lot of tacky glue on the bottom of my pumpkin. I placed it on my wood round, not exactly in the center, but a little bit more toward the back to leave me kind of a shelf or a space to place my embellishments. Now here's those flowers. I had pulled out some little berries. I have these beautiful fall leaves. They have these at Hobby Lobby, one of my very favorites for fall decor. So I pulled out what I thought I might use around the base of this piece. So up to this point, I hadn't realized that I was going to do the 10-inch mesh scrunches. So I decided to put my bow on, which I did, despite adding the mesh bundles, I did leave the bow on. So I'm going to glue that right to the base of the piece. And I'm going to push it right up underneath the pumpkin and adhere it not only to the pumpkin, but also to the board or the wood round. I'm going to hold it there till it sets. Now you saw that I had a couple of leaves there. They're more in the brown family. I prefer those to a lot of the orange leaves that they sell in the various places that sell those things are a little bit too orange for my taste. If it's not like a soft orange or a rusty orange or a burnt orange, I'm really not too much on board with it as far as leaves. So I really like these two colors. So I inserted them next to the bow on each side. They're different colors. That's fine with me. I'm going to use hot glue to attach those. And even though I put the deco mesh on later, I left those leaves peeking out from the side of the bow. So I'm going to stick those in there. Place one leaf on each side. Now, when I mentioned beautiful in my intro, I think these additions to this piece are what made it beautiful. And then, of course, you have the kind of whimsical scarecrow that makes it so super cute. But it just has all the elements as far as I'm concerned. But see how pretty that looks? So you can add pretty with whimsical, and it works. Okay, now I think I'm going to be placing those flowers on there. So I'm going to cut off a little bit larger one and then a smaller one. And I'm just going to hot glue that right to the center of the bow. Now you see how I used 3 different flowers on this piece? That's okay. That really adds visual interest. Really change it up. Do the unexpected. And see how it looks. Okay, just hot gluing those on, and that looks really beautiful with those flowers down there at the base of that piece. Now, I took some of those smaller autumn leaves. The one that I pointed out was one of my absolute favorites. You'll see here in just a second. And I inserted them around the base of the pumpkin. And this was at the point where the light bulb had not gone on yet as far as adding the 10-inch deco mesh bundles around the bottom. Now, if you were just doing the scarecrow head, you don't have to add maybe the deco mesh around the bottom of your pumpkin. That might be quite a lot if you're putting it around the neck, which you still can do. So if you want to just add some of these leaves here and there around the collar, if you will, of your scrunchies, if you just do the head with the pumpkin, you could do that. And you could still add a bow at the base, even though you're not using the second pumpkin. So just making the point, you don't have, along the bottom of your scarecrow head pumpkin, you can do the deco mesh scrunches if you don't want to use the bottom piece. I hope I'm making sense here. But you can also add a bow to the bottom and maybe a few of these leaves. Or you could just leave it, with the deco mesh bundles at the bottom around the neck of the scarecrow. And again, that is if you're not creating this piece with the second pumpkin. I hope all that made sense. Just trying to give you options here, for if you want to just do the scarecrow head with the pumpkin, or if you want to do the double layer of pumpkins for a larger, taller piece. Okay, you can see that I inserted those leaves just here and there, poking them in those little crevices. Now, I did end up, because I ended up putting those scrunches around, and again, I'm trimming. I told you, I kept doing this throughout the process, but yeah, I just kept seeing those little pieces that needed a little trim. So I did end up pulling those leaves out, but then reinserting them into the 10-inch scrunches that I'm going to be creating to add a little bit more toward the detail of this piece. Okay, now I'm showing you what that looks like if you don't add the 10-inch deco mesh scrunches at the bottom. You can see all the detail. Now I'm showing you here. See all the patches that I put on? I did them on the back too. Little ones, big ones. My sunflowers added to my bow. All the detail of that bow, all the way down to the base. Now, because there was so much fullness created with the raffia and the hat, I felt that I needed to balance it out on the bottom. So I happen to have this beautiful 10-inch deco mesh. Now notice it's a different pattern than the deco mesh around the neck. I love that. Even better as far as I'm concerned. Same color family, different pattern. So I just cut 14-inch sections. I hope I mentioned that I did 14-inch sections for the deco mesh bundles around the neck as well. I'm not sure I said that. But 14 inches for both, cut the lengths of the deco mesh. Then I just scrunch down the center with my fingertips. I manipulate the scrunches to kind of coil in the edges. But again, I don't care if I have fraying. I love it. I welcome it. Wrap that pipe cleaner around, about a half a pipe cleaner, and then I just manipulate my bundle. Now I found that for these large deco mesh bundles, I only needed about, I want to say I used 7 to 8 of them. I think I used like around 7 because I had that bow there. I didn't quite need 8. And again, I'm just going to push those into the spaces, mostly in the area of the crevices of the pumpkin. I use hot glue. Then I take my scissors and jam that right in the hole. You want that nice and set inside of there so that you don't see any big spaces at the base of the pumpkin. See how I take my scissors and poke it in there? Now this was the perfect finishing touch for this piece if you're using the double pumpkins. It really balances the top versus the bottom. Okay, so I have that all inserted all the way around. My bow is still sitting there, very pretty. Now I'm going to take those leaves that I pulled out, that I originally put in there, and I'm just going to pop them back in there because I think they look so pretty on top of that deco mesh. Again, details. I just put a little hot glue at the base of the leaf. We are almost done here, believe it or not. This was the last finishing touch on this piece. Now, I hope that you learned a lot from this video. And I hope you feel inspired to make either just the singular pumpkin with the scarecrow or the entire piece. I promise you, you are going to love having this beautiful decor piece. Especially if you're having like a buffet table, for Thanksgiving, or just in the period of autumn. Any kind of event, this would look beautiful on a table. Okay, here you have the finished piece. I'm loving this. I hope you do as well. The beautiful deco mesh scrunches right there, up to the cute face of this very cute scarecrow. The handmade burlap hat with the patches, the beautiful bow with all of the added embellishments. Look at the top. Oh my goodness, so cute with those pit berries. Okay, remember, if you are not a subscriber, I hope you will become one. Let me know in the comments what you think of this very cute autumn decor piece. Give this video a thumbs up if you would, if you enjoyed the content. And remember, next video, we're going to do a beautiful basket. Okay, until next time, you all take care.